The rectangular coordinates of a point are given. Find two sets of polar coordinates for the point in 0 to 2 pi. So what we have here are rectangular coordinates. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these and turn these into polar coordinates. So if we take a look at what we have here, we need the equations to start with. So here they are. So now what we're going to do is we're going to just plug those in. So what I mean by that is, realize here, this is my x, this is my y. So what that means is my x equals negative 2 square root of 3, and my y equals 2. So in essence, what I'm going to do here is just plug these into these equations. So now if I can't use this equation here because I would need to know at least an r and an x or an r and a theta, and that doesn't help me here. But if I look at this one here, that one's a big help because I know x squared and y squared, so I can then find r squared and then find r. Okay, so that's where I'm starting. Also, I have the tan of theta equals y over x, so it has both a y and an x in it, so that one can also help. So let's start with that first one though. So the first one is x squared plus y squared equals r squared. So that simply means I'm going to go negative 2 squared root of 3 squared plus 2 squared, and that's going to equal r squared. So now when I square this here, that's just going to be a 4 because a negative times a negative is positive. So I'm going to get a 4 times 3 plus 4 equals r squared. So now this is going to be 12. So 12 plus 4 equals r squared. So that means r squared equals 16. So then that tells me r equals, in general, we would say plus or minus 4 because we would square root both sides. And when I square root, it introduces a plus and minus. So we'll just keep those there for now. Now we need to do the same thing with the other equation and just kind of plug things in. So then tan of theta equals 2 over negative 2 square root of 3. It's y over x. So then when I simplify this, this is really negative 1 over square root of 3 if I simplify it. So then I'm really looking for the theta, where when I plug it into tan, I get negative 1 over square root of 3. So the first thing I think of is the idea of the unit circle. So I have this going on here, and I think all students take calc. So then I think about this being negative here, which tells me I'm either going to be in the second quadrant or the fourth quadrant. And I'm also thinking of opposite over adjacent. So then opposite always comes from the center angle. So the opposite is going to be a 1, and adjacent is going to be the square root of 3. So that's going to be a negative square root of 3. And then this is going to be a square root of 3 there, and this is going to be a 1 here, which means it's going to be a negative 1. Okay, so right away I hopefully know this angle here. Because this side right here is 2, and this tells me this is one of my special triangles. So this angle here is 30 degrees, which means this one here is also 30 degrees. And if I'm actually looking for the angles that I need here, the angle I need is going to go from here to here. And if I know this is 30 degrees in there, then I know this is going to be 150 degrees. And I also know if I went all the way around here, that would be 330 degrees. Now, the interesting thing with this problem is I don't have two answers for this. I just have one because I have an ordered pair. So I have to understand where that ordered pair is at. So now think about it this way. Let me get rid of all this noise for a minute. And let's just take a look at this picture here. So what this point is telling me, this tells me I'm going to go to the left here because it's negative, and then I'm going to go up here because it's a positive 2. So that's going to put me in the second quadrant automatically. If I understand where my points are, I never have to deal with these other triangles. I can just X those right out because I know I'm in the second quadrant because of the ordered pair. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind as you go through these. Just realize where your points are at. I know my point is in the second quadrant, so that tells me it's going to be this triangle, which then tells me that my angle, that my angle is going to be 150 degrees because I have to be in the second quadrant. And it also tells me that my R is not going to be 2. This was only to help me find the angle. Now that I know the angle is 150 degrees, I can think about the triangle itself. So think about where I'm at here. So I'm just going to graph this. So theta equals 150 degrees. So we know earlier that my R was plus or minus 4. Now we know our theta is 150 degrees. And again, we have to think about us being in the second quadrant. So now one ordered pair I can get from these right away is think about where I'm at. I'm in that second quadrant, so I'm over here. My radius is 4, and that angle could be 150 degrees. Okay, so one of my ordered pairs could be 150 degrees. And let's do another one now. I could do a negative angle all the way around, but I want to be a little more creative than that. So let's think about this going off to the other side here. And I can say that that's negative, what is that angle going to be? 30 degrees, isn't it? Because this is 30 degrees. Okay, so I can say negative 30 degrees. And then if I go negative 30 degrees, that would put me in this direction, but I want to go in the opposite direction. So I can say negative 4. So I can say negative 4, negative 30 degrees. So there's 2 polar coordinates for the point between 0 and 2 pi of the rectangular coordinate negative 2 squared root of 3, comma 2. So there's my 2 answers for that one. So now let's move on to the next one now. So here we go. Let's talk about negative 3, 3 now. So first off, that's my x and y. So again, I'm going to use these 2 equations down here. Okay, so then I'm going to do negative 3 squared plus negative 3 squared equals r squared. So this is really going to be 9 plus 9 equals r squared, which means r squared equals 18, which if I square root both sides, my r is going to be plus or minus 3 square root 2, if I simplify, because that's really 9 times 2, and square root of 9 is 3. So that's where that comes from, just in case you forgot about those. So anyways, I do have my r now. Now I need to find my theta. So I'm just going to write tan of theta equals, and y is negative 3 over negative 3, so that equals 1. So I'm really looking for the tan of theta equals 1. So again, I think of the unit circle, and I think of where tan is 1. That'll be here or here. It has to be in the first or third quadrant for the simple fact that all are positive here, sine is positive here, tangent is positive down here, and cosine is positive there. So I'm either going to be in the first or third quadrant. Okay, so now I also know that my tan of theta equals 1. So that means opposite over adjacent equals 1. So this would be 1, that would be 1. It would be the same thing over here. Now again, this isn't actually my point I'm dealing with here, so kind of keep that in mind here. This only just helps me to find the angles. So I have to understand my angle here now, because if I know that one, this one here, then I know that my hypotenuse here is 2, square root of 2, excuse me. So the square root of 2 here. So just keep in mind that that's a negative, that's a negative. Okay, so anyway, so my angle then is going to be, this is my 1, 1 square root of 2 triangle. This right here is going to be 45 degrees. Which means if I go all the way around, all the way around here, that's going to be 180. 180 would be here, plus 45 more degrees. So that would be 225 degrees for the bigger one there. Now I have to think about where my point is. So my point is -3, -3. So if I just think about where that's at, that tells me I'm going to go this way, -3, and down -3. So I really know I'm not here. Just for that reason, I know I'm down here. So that means I'm going to go with the angle 225 degrees. So now when I write this out here, this isn't the actual points again. The point wouldn't be here, of course, because my radius is 3 square root of 2. This just, again, like I said, helps me to find the angle. So I do know I'm in the third quadrant there. So if I'm going to get my ordered pair, my first one could be 3 square root of 2. And that's why I left the plus or minus there, because I can have negative radius is 2 here when I'm graphing these polar coordinates. Okay, so I'm going with a positive 3 square root of 2, so that means I'm going to have to do 225 degrees. So now let me do one that has a negative radius. So -3 square root of 2. So that means I'm going to have to be on the opposite side of that. So I'm going to have to think of 45 degrees here. Hopefully that's okay with you. So that's a 3 there. So that means I go up 45 degrees, and I'm going to use a different color so you can see it. So I'm going to go up here. And then instead of going in this direction, because that direction would be positive, it's going in a negative direction, so it shoots out that way. So again, that puts me in the third quadrant where I need to be. So that's our two answers for that one now. So we have both answers for both points.